This is Solid Snake, and you're listening to This Week in Geek with Mike the Birdman Dodd and the rest of the Twig crew on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
1943. Detailed information from the Manhattan Project was stolen from Los Alamos by the Russian spy known as Perseus. 1968. Vietnam War. Viet Cong soldiers, orchestrated by Perseus, attempted to steal an American-made nuclear bomb from a U.S. firebase. 5 days ago, while on a mission, we acquired intel that Perseus is in play again and planning an attack on the West. Perseus. CIA's analysts consider him to be the single largest threat to the free world.
Hey guys, you are listening to The Prototype, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I trek into the most dangerous time in modern history. Well, most historians might agree anyway. I'm talking about Call of Duty Cold War, but I'm joined by my man on the inside, a guy behind the Iron Curtain.
Alex the Producer, and by dangerous time, I would say most tense time.
It was not a fun time as I grew up during the Cold War. I was born in 1981. I remember a lot of things happening on television at that time, a lot of stuff I really didn't understand until many, many, many years later.
Was the Iron Curtain, when did the wall fall? Was it 89 or 91?
I think it was 89. I know it was before the 90s.
Because wasn't the Iron Curtain officially went, was it 90 or 91?
Something like that. I'm not 100% sure.
I remember one time in kindergarten, and so I was in kindergarten 91, 92, that era. I remember doing a bomb drill once, ever. And it was in that grade, and we had to sit under our desks like that was going to protect us. And I think it was a case of the school board hadn't updated their policies yet, because it had been like maybe a year since they were discontinuing all of that. But like you go back to our parents' day and age back in the 50s and 60s especially, and even into the 70s, it was kind of a regular thing to do like nuclear bomb drills.
Yeah, when my because I was raised by my grandparents in the 80s, my grandparents would watch a lot of CNN, so I remember watching a lot of the talking heads. I remember seeing Ronald Reagan talking. I remember seeing
tear down that wall.
Mr. Gorbachev. I remember him. I remember
he was. I remember him because he's the one that looks like somebody hit him with a paintball.
But so yeah, he was always a very memorable individual from that particular time in history. But enough about us talking about history. What we're going to be talking about is our extended review coverage of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Now, a review code was provided to us by Activision just before launch. Now, we are getting to this a little bit late as we did run into some issues with this, so we do have to talk about some of that as well. So we were playing this.
Yeah. Let's get that out of the way first and foremost, because it is. We'll say this before saying any technical issues we had. It is a rushed next gen release for hardware, even things. There have been a lot of firmware updates and patches to not just games but to the hardware coming out pretty hot pretty quickly, because obviously COVID screwed with a lot of plans, even hardware plans. So some of these are not even maybe necessarily software related to them directly, because some of these issues can be recreated on other games, but some of them cannot. So
yeah, so we were a little bit behind the ball, but things eventually did work out. I had to do extensive research on Twitter and on Reddit. So big shout out to the Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War community on Reddit for giving me some suggestions on there, some of the things that worked for them. And we will talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the technical issues that we encountered. So we are going to start with the single player campaign, which is one of the main reasons I play Call of Duty. I know I'm weird.
It's the only reason I play Call of Duty. I'm weird.
Which it's one of these things, like, this feels like a Treyarch Black Ops game. And I'm happy because it does feature Mason and Woods, who featured very kind of prominently in Black Ops 1 and 2. Black Ops 3 was more future, weird, Ghost in the Shell type of shit.
I'll preface this by saying that this is my first Black Ops title. I had played a bit of Modern Warfare in the past. Obviously, the remake that we played. I played a little bit of World War II, but that's it. So, like, to me, this is my introduction to that subgenre.
It's not a bad thing. I mean, the thing that I really like about the Call of Duty Black Ops games is they try to be more grounded in reality, or they try and tell a more intricate story than some of the other Call of Duties, like, say, World War II, or even like Modern Warfare 2 and 3, where they're pretty straightforward kind of war stories. Yeah, obviously there's some twists and turns, but
yeah, like my only other introduction, when I say I've played, I mean, other than the newest Modern Warfare, I had not played to completion anyone previously before this. I went back after playing this to play, was it the original Modern Warfare Remastered? But the only game prior to this that I had played start to finish was Ghost, which seems to be like the one-off outlier. Yeah, like it's more divisive, and it was, you know, a launch title that had issues at the time on the previous gen. I played it on PS4, borrowing it from my library. To me, I liked it, but I didn't realize that it was really a one-off that wasn't connected to anything.
Yeah, I mean, like with the Call of Duty brand, there was the 3 games that were interconnected. Then there was Ghosts and Black Ops have one continuous storyline. Advanced Warfare is a one-off. World War II is a one-off. World at War is a one-off. And they try and tell different stories, but the Black Ops world of storytelling has always been steeped in the CIA and the NSA and all these government agencies. Obviously, the U.S. is the good guy, but that's not to say they won't do things that are questionable.
Well, good guy
in quotes. And Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War definitely does deal with some questionable material. We are going to talk about some spoilers in this, so if you followed us this far,
it's been out
kind of long enough now. And this one, its big hook at the end of the game is it deals with the CIA mind control program known as MK Ultra, which, if you know anything about that, it's weird, to say the very least.
It's weird, and we'll probably never truly know every detail about it in real life. We know the vast majority of how it was run, but there's still some aspects that are underworld.
Like there's a lot of documents that will be redacted and will remain classified until the end of the world, pretty much. But it deals with you dealing with the aftermath of one of the major crises at the end of the 1970s into the 80s. And then you find out there's this government agent who's a Soviet rogue agent known as Perseus, who has gotten a hold of a U.S. nuclear device, and what's he going to do with it? You don't know. Eventually, you do find out that it was all part of a government plan known as Project Greenlight, I think is what it was called, and that the United States had planted nuclear devices all over Europe as a, just in case we can't attack the Soviets first, we're going to make sure that something terrible happens.
And not just nuclear bombs. Like they said, it was neutrino bombs. The idea was it would create so much heat and everything that it would kill every living thing. So all organic things would be killed. But leave other than the initial blast point where you'll blow a building, it wouldn't destroy the rest of, basically leaving fallout everywhere.
So basically, bad news for everybody. And
think Chernobyl, but everywhere.
Perseus, he wanted to get a hold of this nuclear device to reverse engineer it. So I've got one of those nuclear bombs. Now I can activate all of them.
Yeah. In the story of the game, they believe that Perseus's target is to have one of the bombs. And you find out halfway through the game, no, he doesn't even care. He leaves the bomb. He leaves the bomb for you to find. He's after the programming code so that he can activate all of them.
Yeah, and obviously bad news for you, and you kind of see yourself as the hero of this story, but you're working with a CIA agent known as Adler, and he...
Well, I just call Robert
that's
Redford.
Who he is. I mean, I don't care who he is.
It's Robert Redford in the movie Reds, like from 1980, like clearly modeled it directly after that. Like It's him in 1980 to 82.
Which is kind of makes the game a little more badass, actually.
They didn't get it. Would have been even better
That
if they
would
got
have
him to
been
voice
really
it.
cool, actually.
But it's to the point where I feel they must have secured licensing
Or
rights
something.
to his likeness, because it's not even like, oh,
They're
it's
not
a
even trying to
lookalike.
hide it.
It looks like almost 100%. Like his model looks more like him than Ronald Reagan's looks like Ronald Reagan. So like they clearly, somebody was a big fan of Robert Redford.
So you, Adler, and your team, you do find out that Adler has brainwashed you as part of MK Ultra, because at the beginning of the game, where you deal with the aftermath of the Iranian hostage crisis, you're one of the people who is left for dead on the tarmac at the end of that mission, and Adler and MI6 have brainwashed you to help you find Perseus. And this is where I think the game is really interesting. You can make a choice at the end of the game where you can either help them capture Perseus or kill him, or I'm pretty sure it's kill.
Well, and depending on what you've done, if you don't, there's some things that if you don't do them, some extras, that choice will be the difference between you going with them to kill or capture Perseus, is the eventual goal, or you decide to lie and betray your people, and you just die.
Yeah,
you see the
which
bad
I decided to betray my team, and what I did, or how it did, is after they wake you up out of brainwashing, you're like, "Let's go kill Perseus," and you're like, yes, but if you there's this CIA safe house which acts as like your mission hub. You can go unlock a gate, which the code to the gate, I'm just going to spoil it for you. It's the date of the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, it's fairly easy to figure out if you read the clues, but the reason I think people should do it early in the game is it gives you access to the arcade machine and the computer, which, by the way, the computer, it lets you put in real terminal commands for Unix systems. So you can actually log into remote computers, in quotes, and there's a possibility that there's a lot of secret things in there that you haven't found yet, because people have found one or two computers they can log into, but they don't know the passwords yet. So some sort of meta will be delineated. Also, the arcade machine lets you play one game, and then when you find other games in the main missions, you can go back in there, even if you rewind to an earlier chapter, and you can replay every game in there. So I did that early on, and if you don't unlock that door before the last mission, you can't get the secret.
So what you do is you go in there, you can tell Perseus that, hey, we're coming here. You should be ready for us. So you go there and you ambush your team at the Soviet communications array. And this was so cool. Like you say, you underestimated me, Adler. And then this RPG gets fired out from the guy, from the bush. All these Spetsnaz soldiers pop out, ambush your team. I shot Park in the face first.
And when you shoot them, it goes into a different bullet time and ragdoll physics, and you watch their brains explode if you hit them in the head, and they're like, ah, and then they're like, they got Parker, and then they
One of
start
my
going
favorites
crazy.
was I shot Woods. I filled him so full of fucking lead.
Well, now here's the thing. Earlier on, 2 or 3 missions earlier, I think 3 missions earlier, you are in a Russian, I think it's the Russian training camp mission where you find all the arcade stuff. When you're leaving, is that the one there's a Israeli soldier, Secret Service agent, and then there's the British SAS, and you have to make a choice.
Oh yeah, you're thinking of when you're in Cuba. Yeah, I chose to save Park because she was MI6.
I didn't save her.
Lazar, you say,
yes, and that will change some of the cutscenes later on. Also, when you're being questioned at the end, when you have the choice to determine whether you're going to lie to them or not, whoever you saved will try to speak up for you and try to be easier on you. And when you're going on that final mission, if you decide to betray your people and kill them, in my case, Lazar, he was yelling at me before I killed him. He's the first one I killed. He's like, "It's not too late. Just put your weapon down. We can stop. We can figure this out. It's not too late. I know you're a good person." And as he said that, I shot him in the head, and his head exploded. And everybody's like, "Oh my god!" They all get mad, and they all start shooting at me. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? They're screaming. So then I killed them all. And yes, it was. It was
I also got an achievement because right at the end of the game, Park's dead, Mason's dead, Woods is dead, and you go into this building and you see Adler on the floor. He's bleeding out. He will die no matter what. And he's like, "Can you give me a light for my cigarette?" I didn't even let him get the words out of his mouth. I blew his head off. I got an achievement for that.
Really? I have to redo that because if you go to get him the light, he pulls out a knife and tries to kill you, and then you have to mash a bunch of buttons, and it turns the knife around, and you very slowly stab it in, and as you stab it in, the controller vibrates, and it makes sounds, and you hear him go, "Oh!" as like all the blood starts pooling in his chest.
Yeah, I just straight up shot him, and then Perseus comes out, and he's like,
yeah.
"I always knew you were a cold bastard."
Yeah. Oh, he doesn't say that to me. He comes out and says, "Good." He gets what he deserves. And then he lets you press the button.
Yeah,
to end
it's
Europe.
great. And then you have two choices, at least for me. He's like, "This is the beginning of the great era of Soviet domination," or "Now it's time to destroy the West." I went with "Now it's time to destroy the West."
It only changes.
It's still
what he
so
says.
cool, though.
Yeah, and if you do the extra missions, there's 2 extra. It's not an overly long campaign, but what is it?
I'd
about
say
10 hours,
less than that because, like, I've heard from other YouTubers, you can run this really quick.
Okay, because you didn't find all the secrets. That's why. I got about 10 hours out of it because I did the 2 extra missions. And to do them, you have to find do them correctly. Sorry, you have to find intel and like take pictures of maps in certain missions. There's some stuff you can pick up in certain desks in the Russia mission where you're inside the KGB headquarters. So there's stuff and it's not marked on your map. You have to really explore to find these things. So in doing that lets you 100% those 2 missions because you can just go in and kill the targets that are there, and that will give you a certain ending. But if you find all the intel, especially for the one where it's like, here's the sleeper cells, and there's like 6 or 7 people you can choose from, you actually have to decode who is who, and there's only 3 targets. And if you figure out who the 3 targets are, because it randomizes every time you play, like every single, not if you just go back and replay it, but like every time you start a new campaign, it'll randomize it. You pick them out, and then for the other one, I forget what the intel was. It was for something else to secure. But if you do all of that, it alters the ending slightly and gives you either a better or worse ending. And I think I got a trophy for that, for getting like for dismantling the sleeper cells and killing them and all that. And they're fairly easy missions. It's basically go in, kill the person, get out without getting killed. Those ones on the good ending, where you stop these anti-air missile things from launching and then dismantle the nuke network. It will then say, you've done a great job breaking down the cell. It'll be a lot harder for them to come in. And when you do it, if you complete those missions while doing the bad ending, in quote bad ending, they just basically talk about how it sucks that they're gone. It's dismantled. It's put a bit of a setback for us, but we have more people we can send in. Yeah,
like I'm really surprised they encourage you to go back and play. Like one of the things I did is there's a Russian arms dealer. I let him live. And there's a Russian spy who betrays you at one point. I went in the KGB and tied up a loose end.
Yes. The guy at the very first mission, I originally threw him off the edge, and you get a trophy for doing that, but you have to go back and replay it because you can't get the intel required to do one of the special missions. If you grab him, he gives you the intel.
So replayability is a lot here. The good ending is canonical, and that.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah,
Europe's
not gone, and it doesn't end well for you, is what I can say.
And when we say Europe, we mean like every capital city of what would be now the European Union and parts of like Northern Europe, even that aren't like like it's London, everywhere, they're all gone, and they're estimating
Millions
what was it
dead.
like a
Yeah.
couple 100 million? If there was up to 200 million deaths based on just the core cities alone and all the fallout. And Reagan goes, erase it all. It's not, basically, I don't want any fallback from this. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of shows kind of what Reagan kind of was like in real life. He was a actor on the front, and then anything he could do to protect himself.
Yeah,
in the back end.
It's worth playing through once for sure. Definitely twice if you want to get all the secret and fun stuff. Plus, it's a fairly fun campaign.
Yes, we should say one thing more about the campaign before we move on. When it's revealed that you are having memories implanted, that is one of the most cool and inventive ways of doing Groundhog Day mechanics that I've ever seen, where you're repeating the same day so that they can try to get your memories unlocked. And at first, it's a Vietnam flashback where you're in there and you're supposed to follow what Adler says to you. If you follow what he says to you, you get to a red door, you open it, and move on. And it's fairly quick. You have to repeat it a couple times. Each time they give you a different weapon. If you refuse to do what he says, this is how you sort of unlock some extra trophies, and you can find some of the arcade machines and stuff. He'll be like, all right, you turned right. Well, if you turn left, he'll yell at you, I said turn right. If you keep going left, it starts to alter the reality around you, and like computers and like random statues will start appearing in the field where it was normally like a rice paddy field. Eventually, if you keep defying him, giant statues of Adler will spawn around you, and all the enemies will look like Adler.
That never happened to me. I had weirder stuff happen, where I had like a giant statue of Lenin. I had like a lot of TVs would start randomly appearing.
Did you get into the loop where you end up in a corridor that keeps getting smaller and smaller as you run around? Okay, depending on what you do before that, it can alter what happens in there, and every door that you go near will have Adler in there slamming the door at you, staring at you from a silhouette. There's all these other little things that can happen. You can end up in a cave where the zombies show up.
To me. And
yes, and you die in one hit. I killed a couple. There is a trophy you can get if you can make it out. It says like something, finding a light in the darkness or something, and that means you're getting out of the cave. It doesn't alter the ending, but it will give you a trophy, because that is almost impossible, because they get faster and faster, and they can run at you, and one hit kills you. And by kills you, it knocks you down, and then Adler's like, cut out that bullshit, there's no zombies, and then they drop the door in front of you, and you have to open the door. Well, you can escape, like I said, to the light, and it will just then move on to another scene where he forces you to open the door. So there's lots of little secrets in there. I also found one of the arcade machines hidden where he says turn left, not right, where the waterfall is. You can follow the waterfall. There's like a log that's down that you can cross against the brush, and there's one of the arcade machines there. And sometimes, I found myself playing like River Raid for like 20 or 30 minutes while playing. So yeah, there's lots of little secrets in there. And like I said, when it comes to the PC, there's going to be a lot of extra little secrets in there. You can play Zork and all these other text games. I think there's a lot more lore and little secrets to unfurl that we'll see.
Yeah, because I know in previous Black Ops title, there was a computer hidden, and I want to say Black Ops 1, and people played around with that and found a lot of really neat things. I mean, the Black Ops thing, if the Black Ops franchise, if it does anything right, is it does add a lot to its lore, does add a lot to Easter eggs, and that...
Well, the Easter egg thing makes sense, because this is all about spies and secrets.
And that will lead me into what we're going to talk about next. You didn't play around with this too much, but I played Zombies last night, and...
Yeah, I played Zombies once with my brother before I had a technical issue.
Played Zombies for about 4 hours last night, which is about the longest I've played Zombies since Advanced Warfare, because I loved Exo Zombies because the storyline really got me. And the storyline for Cold War Zombies, now I did have to watch a video on this because I'm not good enough to do the Easter eggs, plus anybody I played with, I had one team who was going for the Easter eggs, who wanted to complete it, and another team we just kind of horsed around for like half an hour, and the other teams we just kept doing wave after wave. I don't think I got anything beyond wave 20. But the storyline of it, in short, is the Nazis were developing this nuclear device that would provide them with a dimensional rift where they could harvest something called some kind of like an energy crystal. And for some reason, when people got exposed to some energy from this nuclear rift or this dimensional thing, that turned into the undead. Long story short, the Nazis realize bad shit is coming for them. They need to activate the cyclotron. They got to do it now. And they don't take into effect some calculations before the Soviets show up. Bad shit happens. So over the course of like the 50s and 60s, the experiment is largely dormant. However, in the 80s or 70s or 80s or something like that, a Soviet team stumbles upon this thing. I think they're called Team Omega. Is it Omega or something? Either way,
it was something from what I was reading. Yeah, so like that.
I'll just say this. The bad guys find it and decide we're going to reactivate this project because maybe it can turn the tide of the Cold War. And the CIA is like, we got to stop this. We got to stop this now. So the Soviet agent gives you the intel to the CIA and says, you got to get in there and stop this. So in Zombies, you have to unlock all these things, which eventually, it's really cool. I'm not going to spoil the story for you because it is worth doing. It's complicated, but not as annoying as previous Zombies. So it's Zombies. You fight Nazi zombies, but it does do perks and weapons a little bit differently. Like in the other games, you'd start out with a pistol and you could buy your way to cooler weapons. Here, you can kit out any gun you've unlocked and use it with all your weapons and all that shit. And then, it makes the game a lot faster. Although how you buy perks is a little bit differently too. So if you buy Juggernog, that's cheap. If you buy the speed boost, it'll be the next tier up. I think that's how it works. And then there's like there's a piece of field equipment, which is basically your ability. I always chose healing because I don't like dying. And it can help people around you, though nobody used their abilities in the games I was playing in, which I found that to be a little bit strange, but it's a lot more fun than I've had with Zombies in a really, really long time. Plus, you can exfil after round 10, every 5 rounds, you can call in a helicopter and you can leave and you get more bonus crystals to unlock abilities, to unlock more perks and everything to make shit more powerful for yourself. It is worth playing. You can do a 20 round run, an endless round run. And then there's like the zombie arcade shooter. I didn't get a chance to fuck around with too much. But it was fun. So Zombies this year, a lot more fun. I can't wait to see what they do with more Zombies maps because this is a yearly title. They're going to put more stuff in. There's going to be more story. So we'll find out what happens with the changing machine and these dimensional rifts that are opening up all around the world with Nazi zombies. Now, multiplayer. This is where I spent the bulk of my time, well over 30 plus hours. I am prestige level 1, level 10, or something like that. Either way, I'm like level 80 in game or whatever. Okay, so you have 150 health playing. Weapon variety at launch isn't the greatest. Like you only have three LMGs, 2 shotguns, 1 grenade launcher, 3 sniper rifles, a bunch of assault rifles, a bunch of SMGs, and a couple of different marksman rifles. So not the greatest weapon selection. I want to say Modern Warfare had a little bit more, if I remember, but then again, this is launch window. You got to give them a few more weeks. I know season 1 of multiplayer and all that starts on December 10th. Weapon tuning feels fine so far. Like certain weapons can delete people and dump truck them. If you know, like if you're going for headshots, the typical headshot multiplier is I think 1.4. I deal mostly in LMGs, which are doing 50 damage a shot. So I can delete you in like one body shot and 2 headshots or whatever, or a combination thereof. Certain weapons feel better than others. Like, if, for example, if you take the Hauer shotgun, mix that with a damage barrel and the duckbill choke, I can pretty much take you out from a good range by 2 tapping you, or even 1 tapping. It's pretty nuts. But I like it. It's not bad. Map wise, it's a little bit weak because I play a lot of 6v6 multiplayer, and thank God they added Nuketown 84 in this past weekend, because the map selection's a little bit not so great. There is something called Dirty Bomb, which I didn't play a lot during its initial run. I played some of that when there was the open beta a couple of weeks ago, and it reminds me kind of Warzone, but you have to defuse bombs around a map, and it's like respawn. It kind of reminds me a lot of Ground War. Actually, it's fun though. But I think I'll be spending a lot of my time in 6v6 multiplayer, especially as things go on. And that's another thing too. Whenever you accomplish something across all modes, it counts. If you level up a gun in zombies, it counts in multiplayer. So if you level up guns in multiplayer, it carries into zombies. So you don't have to worry about all your attachments being unlocked, which is something I really like about the Prestige system. It's all about numbers. You might unlock some cool weapon blueprints and stuff like that, but all your attachments stay. You get something called Prestige keys. We don't know what those do yet. And we're going to see how that works out, because the Prestige system is going to be one of those things where I think you prestige every 25 or 50 levels, and then you earn something all the time. Basically, as long as you're doing something cool will happen. And Warzone is coming to Cold War. It's getting its own version, I think, on December 10th. As of right now, you have to have a version of Modern Warfare installed to play Warzone. It's Warzone. What more can I tell you? It's already been extensively covered. It's not my bag, but I will say this. It's probably the best Battle Royale I've played, because it does rely on Call of Duty mechanics. The problem with Warzone, and it's been since it came in Modern Warfare, is there's a lot of hackers out there. So it's not really fun. There's a lot of people doing aimbot shit, and it's not fun, and wall hacks. But Warzone, when it works and you get a good squad, it's a lot of fun. Like, it's probably, I have had a few Warzone games where I finished in the top 10. I'm not that good. So that gives me a real hope that I don't suck. But I really like the multiplayer in this. I think Treyarch is on a good path with it. I think there needs to be some weapons tuning and some weapon balancing. They did nerf the MP5 about a week ago. And as of this recording, so you're hearing this on Tuesday, they did promise that weapon XP gains will be changed. So you will unlock attachments faster, because a lot of us were complaining in the community that weapon unlocks were a little too slow. One weapon you can tune out. This is a pro tip. In my opinion, one of the best weapons you can get in this game, I think it's the first LMG you get, is the Stoner. You can get that thing pretty well kitted out by level 20, and you will demolish kids. It's got good fire rate. It's got a good horizontal recoil, good vertical recoil. It's not hard to control. And it's got a 75 round mag. And if you put the 100 round speed mag on it, you are destroying kids. You can hold hard points and domination points indefinitely with good sight lines, and it can wall bang people, which I know pisses people off. So good times. Finally, let's talk about technical problems. So me and Alex played this on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. We did have some serious technical issues, though for me, they have been ironed out in the last 40 hours of gameplay I've had. Now, how I solved that problem is, when I was playing this, I got halfway through the campaign, and I was playing on Xbox Series X, and I had everything turned on. I had the high-res texture packets turned on. I had the Series X version turned on. I had ray tracing turned on. I was doing the mission where you and Woods are going into the Soviet facility where there's the Soviet kind of training ground. And then my Xbox hard crashed. Like, it turned right off. And I was thinking, oh, fuck. So I went on Reddit and started doing some researching with that. And it turns out what the community theorizes, that's a ray tracing problem. And it probably is correct because I noticed it in multiplayer too.
Which the problem with that is the game's been advertised as that being a major feature. So if you were going into it and that's the main reason you wanted to buy it, it's a game-breaking feature for you at the current
But not
time.
everybody's encountering it, which is strange.
Yeah, and not every platform. Like that on the PS5, that wasn't an issue. My issue I encountered was middle of playing multiplayer. It corrupted the data, erased itself from my hard drive, and I had to re-download. And it bricked my system. I had to unplug it from the wall to even be able to use it again. Terrified me to the point where I didn't want to try multiplayer ever again until I hear that there's a patch released. And none of the patches I've seen come out have addressed that issue because it seems to be random. And it's not my system because no other game did.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange to say the very least. I did have another issue kind of tied into ray tracing. There are score streaks that you can use. There's one called an attack helicopter, which circles the map and strafes it with like gunfire. When I turned off ray tracing, when ray tracing was on, you'd see the chain gun and it would flare up like it was firing. When I turned off ray tracing, it just turned into an orange bloom. So I knew that it was shooting because I could hear the gunfire, but it was just this orange ball that was stuck to the helicopter.
Yeah, the only other issue I have with it, and again, like these are all going to be addressed, obviously, was the incredibly massive size the game is. It doesn't make sense to me why it has to be so big. Because other games with similar fidelity are like less than a third the size. If you want to install every mode of the game, to play every mode, Warzone, multiplayer, zombies, single player doesn't even install until you tell it to install, which I found interesting. Like, when it gives you the option to download and install, it says, which would you like to play first, zombies or multiplayer? What if I want to play single player first? And it doesn't let me do that. I had to install one of those, then install. I had to find where to install the rest because this is new because it's a PlayStation 5. So, not all of us knew that you have to go into manage game software and then find it there. But if you want to install every mode, it's 403 gigs on a 600 gig hard drive. You can install one game that takes up 2/3 of your entire hard drive space for your new game console. In fact, if you were to install that on like a Series S, which admittedly would probably use lower res textures, that's the whole drive for one game. And it's not like you can install Warzone separately for it. It's like when you go to launch the game and you want to play Warzone, it goes, please download this 200 gig file. So if you don't want Warzone, they did release a patch that shrunk some things down a little bit, but it's still over 200 gigabytes, which is like counterproductive to what we were told next gen would allow, like that they wouldn't need redundant files. There's no way the data takes up that much. They have to have duplicate texture data in there somewhere because every other game coming out, like Demon's Souls, is a better looking game that is a quarter of the size. So something's up. They're going to obviously release patches, but what frustrated me was when it corrupted itself and deleted itself. You mean I had to re-download 400 gigs? What if I'm on a data limit? If you're somebody who has a limit to, what you can have per month, 400 gigs could be your whole month's bandwidth cap, or more than your bandwidth cap. So I had to like step back and go, I don't want to play right now. I eventually reinstalled and played more single player, but I was afraid to install Warzone and stuff because, like, once I install that stuff, what if it corrupts again? So we never did get a response as to, a patch for that. So I know they're going to have one. There's going to be a major patch, and we'll probably see, like we saw earlier, where there was a patch that reduced the file size by 50 gigs. We'll probably see that again, and we'll see chunks and chunks and chunks come down on next gen, where we might see the game eventually go down to like half the size that it currently is. But that was surprising to me. I was like, whoa. And that's when I was like, well, I'll play single player. I'm not going to play multiplayer right now. Not to mention, I am a single player guy. So I will say this. I absolutely loved the single player campaign. I had zero issues with it. It didn't crash. I played it on quality mode with ray tracing on. It was buttery smooth. Loved it. My only issues came with the multiplayer stuff, which, if you're like you, a big multiplayer fan, that you're probably had more issues than I have overall anyway.
Yeah, like I said, I had mostly graphical issues. I did notice this last night, and it's not the game's fault necessarily. I was playing zombies and I was having massive frame rates and stutters, and then it said migrating hosts. So I guess the person I was playing with just had a really shitty connection, but I'm surprised there aren't dedicated servers for that. So
And we should say that we both have gigabit ISP internet with, I think, 50 megabyte up, which is more than most people have down in the States. So we're in ideal situations for residential internet. So it's not, if we're having stuttering issues like that, it's not us.
But overall, though, I'd say as a complete package, I did have a lot of fun with this. The single player game, I am going to go back and replay to get the good canonical ending so I can see Adler shoot me in the face and I save the world.
And do those secrets as well. I can even help you along if you get stuck, because some of those puzzles are kind of weird.
And multiplayer wise, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when there's the Warzone for Cold War on December 10th. I'm looking forward to seeing how the new Prestige system works.
Yeah. I actually, when you say that, on December 10th, when it comes out, that's when I'll jump back in and I'll do some multiplayer with you. Because I figure if they're launching that then, there's probably going to be some
I'm
big
hoping
patches.
there'll be some new patches. I'm hoping for a couple of new guns. Probably not, but I'm kind of hoping they do it the same way that Modern Warfare did it, where here, do this challenge, you now have access to this rifle, shotgun, or whatever.
It's probably wishful thinking to me, but I would love if they did, like, a few months down the line, give us like an epilogue or something where we could do like one extra mission on the single player, because I absolutely loved it. Like, don't take my issues with some technical complaints as being cynical. I absolutely love the game. I wish that it had more bugs fixed at launch, but this is shaping up to be a really, really good representative of next gen gameplay.
I enjoyed this more storyline wise than I did Black Ops 3, which went into this really weird Ghost in the Shell direction, and Black Ops 4 didn't have a storyline. It was multiplayer focused only, except for those tiny specialist missions, which you could do in like 20 minutes anyway.
I should mention one final thing for mine that you wouldn't have had an experience with. Because I was playing it on PS5, I got to take advantage of the new features in the DualSense controller. So the rumble, it did do a little bit of voices and sound effects through my controller. So that speaker that's in the controller, as we know, is a lot better than what was in the PS4. So radios, if you're not wearing headphones, radios will come through there.
Oh, that's really cool.
Because it sounds perfect. As well as, if you're shot from the right-hand side, or like a ricochet or something dings you or there's an explosion, only the right side of the controller will rumble. And if you're hitting the left side, front, so on and so forth, you can actually feel things like if something grazes across you, you'll feel it go from the left to right of the controller. As well as the adaptive triggers. It really, like, people were complaining initially, like, oh, it makes online multiplayer harder. It's like, no, because it's supposed to be more realistic, give you more experience. Like, if your gun jams, it'll drop all pressure on the controller. You just keep flailing the trigger button and nothing will happen. If you're aiming with a sniper rifle, the different weapons give you different amounts of pressure that you have to aim with. And pulling the trigger, as a bullet comes out, you can feel it go doof, 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 and the trigger will release and go with it. It's really cool. And I'm happy that they were able to take advantage of that for a first-gen day one, basically, release. I don't know how different it would feel with it off, because I purposely left it on, because it was much more immersive than any shooter I've ever felt before.
Cool stuff. So I guess our final recommendation, if I had to give this a score, I'm going to say as of right now, this is a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10. And the only reason I'm giving it that score, there are some technical issues that do need to be ironed out. Zombies is not for everybody. Like, I'm highly going to recommend you watch videos on how to play zombies, and having a headset and going in with a team is probably your best bet to accomplish all the Easter eggs, because going online playing with randoms, don't know how that's going to work out for you. Warzone is a lot of fun. You can play it solo and still do competently until you're down to the final couple circles, and then best of luck to you, and may the odds be ever in your favor.
I would say personally, if I was just reviewing the single player and I had no other experience with anything, it's an 8.5. It's well done. It does drop a point for me to 7.5 because of the major technical issues that I experienced personally at launch. That I feel like once they release some patches, like, you know, come early December here, it might just go right back up to 8.5.
I'm hoping, actually, as of this recording, Treyarch has promised there'll be more double XP events coming up this year, which I'm looking forward to, because I really want to level up my M60 machine gun. And not because it's the best LMG, because it's not, because that's the Rambo gun. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, you know what? If anybody was thinking maybe we were like being harsh on this, think about this. Remember when Ghost launched, how many more issues people had with that? I think this is a better new console launch title than Ghost
this
was.
is a smoother launch with certain things. I mean, there are some multiplayer things, like I could nitpick bullet velocity and hit detection for a little while, but that's really community nitpicky shit. But
and we should preface it by saying we're playing 60 FPS mode because neither of us has a 120 FPS capable display currently. I may get one in the new year, at least for PC, and if that's the case, we can always talk about it on the regular show, saying, hey, look, one of us can now play 120, because that's what we've heard has been the most amazing thing, is when you play it in the 120 FPS mode on multiplayer. And I imagine that would be something that you would want to check out at some point as well, because you're all about the Twitch gaming, right?
So ultimately, folks, don't take our word for it. Go and check this game out. It's worth investigating anyway, and hopefully Santa, who is COVID-free, I might add, will be delivering this to you.
Immune. He's immune, and I saw Santa Claus on I think it was CBC's The National, explaining that not only did Dr. Fauci say he's immune, but the rest of his staff is immune because they're elves and reindeer.
And he has a really small bubble.
And
for now.
Yes, correct. And he and Mrs. Claus don't leave the house except for one day a year.
He's ready for it. So anyway, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of the Prototype. We are going to have a few more prototypes as January, or as December rolls on. We are going to be doing something for the Game Awards coming up next week. We are going to be doing a prototype discussion on Immortals Phoenix Rising, as Alex gave you first impressions yesterday. I'm currently playing through the game this week to give you my thoughts on it. And then we will be doing something for Cyberpunk the week after release, till we've had at least 50-60 hours with it a piece, and we can talk about it. I can also talk how it ties into Cyberpunk Red as well. So anyway, busy times.
Perfect. Yeah, so we will still have plenty of content even when we're on hiatus.
Yeah, we thought we were going to get a break. We were wrong.
We'll get a couple days, maybe Christmas and Boxing Day.
Before we go, I figured this out. I figured out what time I'm actually going to get off the show. So I begin school again on December 9th. We do our holiday gift guide on December 7th. So I'll get Tuesday off. Well, yeah, that's how that goes. So anyway, folks, until next time, we have been
Alex the
Mike
Producer.
the Birdman saying, we've got a job to do. We'll be back, guys, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.